Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another CSM interview. We have someone who has ran before but has not yet got on the CSM. Before we get into the interview, let me just remind you that these interviews serve two purposes. One, they're to inform you, so you know who the candidates are, what their platforms are, and who you want to vote for. But it's also so that my two communities, eRookies and Worm Life, can formulate a ballot and put it out to the public. I will not be putting the ballot together. It will be my management in Worm Life as well as my community team over on the eRookie side. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your EVE experience, who you fly with, and all of that good stuff.
Hello, everyone. My name is Frippyy. I'm the CEO of the Nullsec Corp Rebellion in Get Off My Lawn, which is part of the Imperium. I've been playing the game now since March 2024, and I ran last year in CSM19 as an independent candidate, and that's what I'm doing again this year.
Excellent. So, CEO, when did that happen?
February.
Congratulations. How is it?
I like it because outside of uni, it keeps me very busy. So, I got uni in the day, and then by night, I'm bossing around a bunch of people double my age. So it's brilliant.
Awesome. So, last year you had a couple platform items. Can you tell us what your platform is this year?
So sort of taking my experience from last year, the goods and the bads, this year I've tried to have a bit more of a more rounded platform compared to just focusing on new players. I'm now looking at both quality of life updates to keep new players in, but also helping people who are currently playing the game. So the top 3 points from my campaign, I would say focus on sort of nullsec PvP activities to keep that fresh. Overall PvE activities across high sec, low sec, and nullsec. And I'd probably say the other biggest part is probably some industry tweaks, just to make that sort of better for everyone.
Very cool. Yeah, it's really interesting how platforms kind of progress over time as you get more experience, you get into other parts of the game. I've seen it with my own platforms over the last 4 years now. It definitely evolves, and it's good because you should be evolving as a player.
Yeah.
But of course, we're always going to keep those new players in mind, and that is where we're going to start. Is what do you think the biggest barrier is to new players undocking?
The biggest barrier that I think is present in the game, if we're looking just at the game, is there is so much knowledge a new player needs to have that unless they're really stubborn or have friends to guide them, I have seen a lot of people fall out of this game really quickly because it just doesn't have the necessary guidance at the start unless you've got like friends or whatever, or you just like hit your head against a wall. And I think that there needs to be some changes to high sec and sort of just progression in general for the newer players and everybody who lives up there, just so newer people or people helping newer people can help their friends progress into the game without having to make them, spend X amount on skill injectors and whatnot, because that's how you do things. It's, maybe creating a way for newer players to actually have a path that's sort of paved out in front of them without having to go to somebody else to see it.
Okay, excellent. And then, what role do you think fleets play in player retention in general?
Well, as a nullsec fleet commander, I can say that some of and also as a CEO, some of the best player retention in terms of like my corporation, in terms of the alliance, the people who go on fleets are the people who enjoy the game more, and because they've got more of a community feeling, because they go flying with the same people all the time. They have a group of people they don't usually play with that they're interacting with. It's these large scale fights, sometimes small scale depending on the objective. And it's some of the best way to enjoy PvP with an EVE is in a fleet setting, especially when you just sit back, relax, and listen to the FC and just sort of, let them guide you. So I would say that fleets have a very important place, especially player retention, because it's really gives something that a lot of games can't offer, which EVE fleets do.
So now that you're CEO, this question may have been running around in your mind. What tools or features could CCP add that helps you provide content to your community, your players?
Uh, so I liked the freelance job mechanic, and I think there is some sort of further work that could go towards it. But I think if I could think of a new mechanic, I'd probably say having a probably there's one fix to make quality of life really easier as a community leader, which is you can't have, for example, a court project that's a delivery for the same item in the same station twice. If you do that, it duplicates it, and so it basically, if you have it for 5 Osprey navies, when you hand in one Osprey, it completes both of the projects instead of having them secondary.
Oh,
And so I've accidentally lost 400 million by people handing in ships to court projects, and it's completed both at the same time when I've actually needed them done separately. So I just have to make them bigger rather than in separate ones. But it's nice to track as they're separate ones. So that's one thing they could change to make sort of group management at management level easier. Would be basically tweaking court projects so that you can have duplicate ones.
I definitely would think that that is a big quality of life update for those of you who use court projects that way. Now, do you think toxicity is keeping players from undocking?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say so much if you're brand new to the game and don't have social connections, but if you have social connections within this game, um, and you're part of a group, let's say, and that group interacts with other players, you're going to run into a lot of toxicity, and it's just up to you to either stomach it or, get upset at it. But at the end of the day, it is prevalent, and I do see it on a daily basis. And I grew up playing Call of Duty, so toxicity in video games is kind of like what I'm used to. But I know some people aren't. I mean, I don't, it's not me condoning it, but I'm used to it. Whereas some people, it really affects them, and you have to sort of look at it and go, okay, well, this isn't right, this isn't fair, and somehow find a way to change that. Be that having a report function that actually gets looked at,
Mm-hmm.
or some way to have a sort of community feature where people can call out people who are being toxic in game via local chat or whatever.
So, if you remember last year for your CSM interview, we talked quite a bit about toxicity and your experience as a, what was it, 6-month-old player. Do you think,
Mm-hmm.
looking back then to now, it's gotten a little bit better in the game, or is it about the same or worse?
Okay, I'd say overall, for what I've just witnessed of the game, it's the same. Personally, towards me, it's got worse, but that's because of events that have happened, and which I'm not gonna say in public because it's already been a public matter a couple months back. So if you know, you know. But essentially, there's still people who bring that up, and there's still a bit of a targeted effort against me, both in game and also on Reddit. So I definitely do think that toxicity is something that does need to be managed and is still impacting every player, because there's not one person I haven't spoken to that hasn't at one point received some toxicity, in some shape or another. And I've spoken to people ranging from wormholers to low sec faction warfare people to high sec mission runners to null sec block people. So, like every aspect of the game, it's present.
Yeah, it really is. This year, Everkey's got into faction warfare, and oh boy, we won't talk about militia chat. That kind of makes me lose hope in humanity sometimes.
Faction warfare, unfortunately,
Yep.
is a very competitive area of the game, and I think that some people take out their frustration with the game on other people too much.
I tend to agree with that. Okay, so now we talked about, what keeps people from docking. What kind of content do you think keeps players logging in? Not just new players, but veterans and basically everybody.
I'd say, obviously, ISK makes the world go round, and as a CEO, and also I forgot to mention I'm also a diplomat for law now as well. So I have some aspect in alliance level decisions when I'm looking at sort of players and their income and whatnot. Most people are are doing ratting. And the best way I've seen is via crab beacons. And I know crab beacons are very popular because it's my favorite way of making money. I'm not an industry person, but 90% of my corp are industry folks. So I know that a lot of people do mining, be that belt mining, moon mining, and gas huffing, and then they do the PI and whatnot. And I've heard that's very complicated. I've got enough to know what sort of goes into it, but I've never actually done it myself because indies never interested me. But I'd say it's the ISK making that is keeping people logging in, because if you can't make ISK, you can't buy new ships, you can't play the game, and essentially, I mean, one thing that's nice to get to is making enough ISK per month where you can flex your account using ISK. So I know for veterans, that's a target everybody tries to aim for, is trying to make the 3-4 billion ISK a month to buy the Plex to flex your account.
Right.
And I know that keeps veterans in nullsec, at least. It gives them a target every month to hit that much.
What about the daily opportunities? Do you think that keeps people logging in?
For the first 12 days, and then once they get the reward of all the like 4 quadrant rewards, I feel like it should either have a reset once you've completed it, and you can do it twice, so it fills out the entire month or close to the entire month. Or they change it and make it a longer sort of
cycle
channel. Yeah. Because those who do daily opportunities, if they do it twice, that's 24 days out of the month covered, right? And assuming not everybody plays every day, or if they do, they just log in to do their dailies or whatever. I like the fact they added the 3 jump thing. I think that does make it a little bit easier for people who, for example, don't do faction warfare or don't do mining or don't do exploration or PvP, so that they have another option alongside the thing they do. So you're not limited as much. I did prefer it when it had 8 options for that like short 2-month period where there was like 8 options you could pick from, sort of at the start of this year. But I like what they've changed it to. So you got 4 main options plus the jumping one, and then you got obviously the rewards. I think that if they want to sort of make that any improved, I'd say recycle the rewards one time so that it covers at least 24 days of the month.
How would you encourage solo players to get into group activities?
So it really depends why the player is solo. If they're solo because they're shy, then that's more of a personal thing. But if they're solo because they're not aware of the group activities out there, and we'll go from that perspective, people just aren't aware, there really should be a bigger sort of presence within just the EVE community to encourage players. Now, one way you see that a lot is via corp recruitment, but that's just to drag them into a corp rather than get them involved in group activities like faction warfare, like small gang PvP roams, stuff like that. There isn't really a community space to discuss that unless they're in the EVE Discord or a specific community Discord, or they're on the forums or Reddit. Nothing actually in game to coordinate that unless they take an initial step first. And unless you go around to all the major trade hubs and you put mobile depots going, come do this with us, there's no way to really contact the average solo player without them taking a step first. So maybe they're like with freelance jobs, how you can reach out to the entire community. Maybe there should be an in-game like community forum or chat,
right?
Which is optional. Like, you know,
that could kind of be cool, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think that CCP should put more solo activities into the game?
When it comes to PvE, I'd say in general, PvE, I do feel like if you look at the 4 main aspects of the game, PvE, PvP, Indian, Explo, PvE does sort of seem to be lacking the most when it comes to repeatable fun content. So if anything, they should just add some more content to PvE in general across high sec, low sec, and null sec. for solo players and group players. I think is a thing that impacts everybody, no matter if you're solo or group. But specifically for solo players, I'd say that there's enough things you can do as a solo player in PvE to make enough money that I don't think anything new specifically targeted for solo players should be added. But I just think in general, targeted for all players, there should be more content added.
Okay. And then, if you could ask CCP for one quality of life change, what would it be that you haven't mentioned before?
Removing the interference of the in-game map to show crab beacons being linked to. I think the fact that it appears on the map the 4 minutes into you linking it, once you finish that 4-minute cycle, I think takes all the fun out of being in a hunting fleet and going to actually try and find beacon hunters, beacon runners, and maybe they should limit it to in the same constellation or in the same region. But the fact I can sit in my home station and see Frat up at the northeast of the map and in it over there doing it in all and it lists the systems, I think is completely unfair intel. There's no way I would actually know they'd be crabbing there without that feature. And I think it's used in the incorrect way. And I think that's not because of the players, it's because it's been deployed by the CCP in the incorrect way. So I think the best quality of life change in order to help smaller groups who don't have a capital umbrella to be actually able to run beacons in NPC and Sov nullsec. And also it just helps people running beacons, especially in these smaller groups that don't have a capital umbrella, successfully run them without getting dropped and having the fear put into them of not being able to do some of the best disc-making activity in the game.
Okay. So we're going to take a second and we're going to bounce back to toxicity. You're aware of the campaign that went on in Providence this summer, correct? With Absolute Order?
I've heard bits about it. I don't have the full details.
Okay, so basically, Absolute Order has been a fairly toxic community. They have decided to roleplay paramilitary groups from real life, and they also have been said to kind of abuse their new players. It's a churn and burn type recruitment. So
I've heard there's quite a lot of hazing as well.
Yeah. So, and that their upper management is quite toxic. All the things that we've talked about before, dropping all those hard, like N words, R words,
Yeah,
all that good stuff happens in their, management Discord. So this summer, the Greater Eve community has decided they had enough and they were going to evict Absolute Order out of Providence. And they have been successful. So what I want to know is, knowing this, what are your thoughts on it? Is it good that the community did this? Bad? Are you indifferent?
I'm just going to say now, I'm fucking glad they got kicked out. One, just because it means you can actually fly through Providence again. Because speaking of toxicity, those are most people that be flying slurs at you in local chat, especially if you try to PvP them and kill them. The fact they got evicted, I think, is incredible. I think that the community coming together to evict a group of losers is what they should do. And it kind of does send a message to the rest of these groups who are like Absolute Order, who are toxic as fuck and bully people, is essentially the community has had enough and they're going to literally blow up all your shit and kick you out of where you live if you carry on. So right. More power to the people who did it, honestly. Like, more power to the people who evicted them.
Excellent. So, now we're going to get into my favorite part of the interview, talking about the CSM. And if you remember, like last year, we did a lot of Let's Pretend questions. So, this time, you make it onto the CSM. What type of candidates do you want to work with? And what kind of candidates do you think that the CSM sorely is lacking time and time again?
Not to toot my own horn, but I feel like if I got onto the CSM, I would like to work along both veteran players, but also maybe have another newer player on the CSM20, because being a newer player myself, I know that I may have certain opinions or perspectives or ideas which older players may not be able or to ask via them not thinking about it because it may seem too basic or them not wanting to say it out of feeling of being dumb. Whereas I don't really care because I'm sort of the newer guy, so maybe I have a genuine question, which leads on to some constructive feedback. But in order for that to happen, it requires that everybody else on the candidacy who gets selected be able to have adult constructive conversations, be able to listen and also give feedback, be it constructive criticism, and sort of have a whole mature feeling about it without it feeling too like professional and like an office environment. And it needs to be able to have some fun because obviously it's a game, but there needs to be some professionalism as well, and it's about having that right balance. And there's definitely people running this year who I would very much like to be aside on the CSM20, just from knowing them from having chats with them on VC over text, in interviews, joint interviews, that kind of thing. So I do think this year has a very strong list of candidates, and quite a lot of them I'd like to work with.
Okay, and if you get onto the CSM,
A few moments
what is
later.
your approach going to be to show support for the issues that you bring?
Well, obviously being able to actually follow through with the concerns I've brought up and have them addressed, be that by gathering data from my Corp Alliance people I know in game and then passing that on to CCP as developers without telling them how to do their job, sort of saying, I think that this may be an issue, here's the evidence why, have a very formulaic approach with it. Instead of saying, I want you to do this, that, and that, say, hey, I may think this is an issue, here's the evidence why, based on the data I've gathered from XYZ players. Could this be looked into, and then help them in any way they need, a bit more information, more data. And I do think that as somebody who's studying mathematics at university, and data analysis is one of the things I do, you can apply that to this situation very well, because obviously a lot of this game has public data which you can take from and formulate arguments and also evidence. And I think that also being a streamer on Twitch helps you communicate with more people, and I do actively talk to people about what they think about the current state of the game to try and get their ideas on things. And I think that being in the CSM and a streamer would help me hear more concerns, and maybe somebody who gets on the CSM but doesn't put any effort into actually reach out to people, because I'm coming into contact with more people than someone may not necessarily do it, let's say actively go out there kind of thing. And it's just a great way to meet people from different walks of the game without having a bias towards it. Because people worry about nullsec candidates only worry about nullsec, you know?
Right.
I've heard that. I've never been on the CSM. I've only been in this run twice. I've only been in this game for almost 2 years, and I already know that people were worried about CSM candidates, nullsec CSM candidates only worrying about nullsec. And I just want to say that even though I'm a nullsec candidate, I'm focused about the game, not just nullsec. So...
Okay, so if a player approached you with an idea or an issue that you completely disagree with, how do you think you're going to handle that?
I think in any interaction with other people, if somebody brings an opposing argument or idea that I personally disagree with, it depends what they're backing up that idea with. If it's just a spouted nonsense and it's in a group setting, then it kind of determines how the rest of the group reacts. If it's directly towards me in a one-on-one setting, I would remain as professional and kind as possible, because it's all well and good me talking about me being toxic and other people being toxic, but if I can't have an adult conversation, it just ends up with somebody being toxic in the end. So using that knowledge of let's not be toxic, it means that my entire mindset is be able to have adult conversations with people who disagree with me and I disagree with them. Even if we're both on the CSM, their voice is as good as mine is, their opinions are. Even though I may have a personal objection against it, I should still listen because they were also elected. And I think that mutual respect should still be present, regardless of any personal opinions.
So, what do you think that you personally can do that none of the other CSM candidates that are running can?
Provide a fresh look on the game as a new player, as somebody who has only recently started playing the game in relative to the other CSM candidates. Looking at the lifetime of the other candidates, majority of what you'd class as veterans have been playing for multiple years and whatever. I haven't even been playing for 2 years yet. It's just been over 18 months. And I still say that I am a newish player because I am still learning about the game. I'm still getting information about the game and I'm still eager to learn. And that eagerness to learn provides a inquisitive mind that always wants to ask questions for the sake of information, not personal goal. And I think that's what separates me from the rest of the candidates.
Wow, I'm a veteran already. I don't know how I feel about this. Uh, so, this is a question that I had last year. I don't know if you remember or not, but
Let's see.
what do you think you're going to do if you get elected to the CSM and on the first meeting you find out that nothing that you do in the game is going to be part of the expansion?
Knowing what I know this year compared to what I know this last year about the CSM and how it all works, if in the first meeting I get told about the upcoming expansion and it has nothing to do with what I campaign for or anything like that, it is completely irrelevant to me. I think I would just suck it up and get on with it because I know there'll be other opportunities throughout the year to bring up the things that I have campaigned for. So it won't break my confidence, nor will it feel like a massive defeat to me because I still have opportunities and chances to make sure that the things I ran for are relevant.
So then, kind of on the same line of thinking, what do you think you're going to do if you find out that your gameplay is going to be either taken out or drastically changed? Say they decided to do away with corporations and your role as CEO is just gone.
What, as in, like, joining CSM means I can't be a CEO?
No, no, no. That you get in, you find out that they decided that corporations and alliances are a thing of the past. They're just going to totally get rid of this.
I think if it had such a massive impact on the game like that, I would. I'd say protest it in a civilized way, in the sense that I'd want to understand their reasoning behind it, especially when a lot of communities revolve around alliances and corporations, and it's such a pivotal part of why this game is so unique. I would definitely want to find out 100% the reasoning behind it being such a massive change, regardless of if it's corporations, alliances, coalitions, or if there's tweaks to how corporations work and the relationships with other corporations, or in-game changes like ship balancing or adding in new ships or removing ships, stuff like that. It would definitely be met if it was detrimental to the game. It would definitely be met with by rational and logical protest on my part. But at the end of the day, if there's nothing I can do to contest it, then there's nothing I can do to contest it. And I know when a battle is being lost, and there's no point fighting it, kind of thing.
So then, let's say the expansion that takes corporations and alliances out of the game drops, and this is the first time that players have learned about that, and your DMs suddenly blow up. How do you think you're going to react to the displeasure of the community?
Well, thankfully, being a alliance and corp leadership in nullsec, and also being a Twitch streamer, has meant I've had a lot of interaction with the Eve community, and so I'm used to how it is. And so, if that expansion did drop and my DMs blew up, which I can see them doing, if that did happen, obviously being under NDA, you can't discuss anything, and I would just be glad I hadn't broken that NDA, and I would actually feel relief that people are coming to me to ask after the fact, rather than me telling people. Because at the end of the day, when you're under NDA and you're told to keep something a secret until it becomes public, I'm going to do that. And regardless of my personal connections with people, I'm not going to fuck those over and fuck over the NDA just because of personal connections. So I'm used to how the community is, especially across controversial things, and so it wouldn't surprise me.
And then the last question is projection has been a huge topic with the CSM. It was a huge topic in CSM18. I know that, they started bringing up that it was important that, needed to be worked on in 17, probably in the 5 CSMs before that. It's currently a topic in 19, and CCP actually changed some things this year to help with the problem. Do you feel the projection problem is solved, or do you think that you're going to have to keep CCP working on it for CSM20?
I would say when it comes to projection, I am nowhere near as concerned about it as some of my counterparts. I'd say if I were to be concerned about it, one idea that I had crossed my mind to sort of solve projection is have a limited number cap on how many antiplexes you can have in a region in NorSec per se, or reduce the range of certain bridging and conduiting just to reduce that. Not so much bring back jump fatigue through antiplexes, because I feel like that's quite detrimental to gameplay. Because it doesn't take account if somebody needs to crash back through a gate to avoid a gate camp or whatever. If they've got jump fatigue, they can't do that, so they're just dying. I think that the best way to limit something like projection would be putting a cap on the amount of antiplexes being available in a region. And then I have heard that an argument to that is, well, what's to stop, your enemies going and securing all of the antiplexes slots first? Well, at the end of the day, in nullsec, if somebody's got a strategic structure, you go ahead and blow it up.
Right.
So it's just something you fight over. It's a new resource to fight over. I think it would make Ansible placement a lot more strategic and thought out than just having them in every other system.
Okay.
Yeah, it would slow down fleets, but at the end of the day, if people are so concerned about it, then I feel like having a cap on Ansible per region is the fairest way of going about it.
Okay, so I think it's safe to say that it'll probably be something that CSM20 will be dealing with as well.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Or
From what I've heard.
Or someone said CSM30 is going to still be dealing with it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So we have a little bit of time left in the interview. Is there any topics or anything that you want to talk about that we didn't cover?
I just want to say, for those of you who want to learn a bit more about me or my campaign in general, please feel free to go ahead and take a look at my EVE forum post. I reply to every comment personally. My Discord DMs are also open if you want to chat one-on-one about my campaign after you've read it. And, I like to have as much feedback as possible, be it positive or negative, and I also like to hear what you think about my campaign so I can improve on it and work on it and make sure it actually gets carried through. So if anybody has any comments or feedback that they'd like to give to me, please feel free to message me.
Okay, awesome. Do you answer EVE mail?
EVE mails, yeah and no. I'm much easier to reach via the forum post and my Discord. So if you did email me, I would see it and respond, but not as quickly as something like a Discord DM, per se.
Okay, then the final thought. So, why should players vote for you? And why should my communities put you on our ballot?
So why should you vote for me? I have slightly covered that, but I'll go and reiterate it, which is I bring three perspectives, I'd say. I'd say I bring one, the new player perspective to the CSM, which is I still have the game's best interests at heart. Because I've been a new player, this game's still so fresh to me and I love it. And I still have that passion in my heart for this game. Out of the idea of helping other new players and other people retaining their place in the game. Second, I think that as a someone in nullsec leadership, the skills that I've honed in nullsec leadership through social interaction is going to help me get along with my co-CSM members and be able to cooperate and negotiate in certain centres in a respectful and adult-like way and not get petty. And then third is I am not afraid to speak for what's right morally. And if there's a thing that's getting ignored, which is a outrageously immoral thing, but it makes people profit off it or whatever, be it toxicity or like absolute order or whatever, I am not going to be someone who's going to just put my sort of turn the other cheek to it. I'm going to make sure that it gets addressed and is sorted.
Okay, excellent. Then we're going to go ahead and make sure we'll get all your links down in the description below. And that way, if people have any questions about your campaign or want to talk to you, they're going to be able to contact you. We'll get this up in a couple days. So thank you so much for coming back on, and
Thanks for having me.
best of luck.
Thank you very much. You too. Thank you for having me back on. I appreciate it.